Hi, and welcome to this section of NetBlazer How to Multimedia Training. In this section, we'll guide you through how to set up EtherSAM test case on your FTB 800 series modules. In order to select the EtherSAM test application, you simply click on the icon located right under Ethernet. Once the EtherSAM is selected, you can click on the test configuration tab. In this page, you can select modify structure first. Modify structure allows you to select your interface rate and the connector type depending on your software option, and depending on the module used, you can select the option that you have on the interface. And you can also choose a connector, whether you're using port 1 or port 2. Once you select the proper interface rate and the connector, you simply click on OK. Once you configure your interface parameter and select the port you're going to be using, now you can click on the 100 meg optical here in order to maximize this page. Either simply double click on the page here, or you click on the plus sign to maximize the window. In this page, it gives you automatically information about your link. As you can see here, it shows link up, and it tells you information about the physical interface connection, the flow control, and it's also give you the physical interface information. What's the power level, if the laser is on or off, and it gives you the wavelengths of the SFP that's used and the power level, and it gives you the minimum RX power and the maximum RX power in dBm. You can also control your TX frequency. You can enable and disable the frequency offset. Once you configure and select, you can click on the next tab, which is a network. Here you can configure your interface network parameter. You have an option to enable or disable the factory default MAC address. It actually allows you to modify the MAC address, or you can use the factory default. You can also use a frame format, whether you're going to be using Ethernet 2 or 802.3 snap. And the IP information box, you can choose depending on what type of IP version you want to do. You can have an option IPv6 or IPv4. You can obtain automatic IP address from using the DHCP. You can enable or disable, or you can assign static IP address using this field. You can enable and disable the default gateway depending on if you're going through the gateway. You can simply enable it and edit the default gateway parameters. And you can enable and VLAN on the interface. If you want to enable it, simply click on enable. On the interface, it allows you to do up to 3 VLAN stacking, and you can do your EVLAN, SVLAN, and CVLAN. As you can see, for each individual VLANs, you have all the parameters, priority, type, and drop eligibility options. Under the SFP Plus, it gives you information about the SFP that you're using, give you the speed, the type, the wavelengths, and the mode of the SFP that's in use. Once you set all this parameter, in order to move forward, you simply minimize this window. Once you select your interface with the proper settings, next field we can look at is services. In order to maximize the service field, you simply click on the plus sign here. So on this page, it allows you to configure your services. On the service page, it allows you to configure up to 10 individual services. In order to access in each individual service parameter, you simply click on the service that you want to configure to. It automatically allows you to select. In this case, since we select service 1, as you can see, it's highlighted orange. You can name the services. You can also enable, disable the service using the enable, disable option. You can configure your SLA parameters. You can configure whether it's percentage or gigabyte or megabyte, different units. So you can enable or disable the CIR or CIR plus CIR. You can also provide your SLA parameters and performance criteria, maximum jitter, round trip latency, and frame loss. Then you can configure also the profile, what type of profile your service will contain. If you click on the profile, it allows you to configure different profile type. Either can be voice, video, or data. You can select the frame size. Either you can choose fixed and change the frame size byte. You can support up to 16,000, or you can select random or imix frame size. Under the test parameters, you can test traffic policing. You can enable or disable depending on if you will be testing the traffic policing under your EtherSAM test. Once you set your service parameter, you can also look at the MAC IP UDP tab. In this section, we can configure the frame structure. Here we have an option to configure our IP version. It could be IPv4 or IPv6, or the frame format. We can select what type of framing that we want to send. If you want to send only up to layer 3, you can simply say none for a transport layer, or you want to test only layer 2 traffic, you can simply choose layer 2 traffic and say none for network layer. It automatically adjusts your framing. In this page, it also allow you to configure your VLAN for the services. You can enable up to 3 VLAN. You can also do MPLS labeling. You'll be able to stack up a 2 MPLS tagging. Once you modify your frame structure, in this page, it allows you to change your destination MAC, or you can select resolve MAC if you know the known destination IP address. You can configure your VLAN, and you can also configure your VLAN priorities. Under IP, it allows you to configure your source and destination IP address, subnet mask. If there's any default gateway, you can also enable or disable if you want to use a IP multiplicator. In this page, you can also configure your type of services for IP. You can use a type of services or differentiated services. You can also change the UDP or TCP depending on your frame structure. You can change the source and destination port here. Under global, it allows you to see how many services are configured under SLA, and you can enable and disable, and they give you overview of your configuration. And general gives you more information about your framing, frame size, VLAN priorities, and addressing. And it's also give you what's committed and what's available on overall line rate. And you can also change the global unit option in megabyte per second or percentage. And it also allows you to copy the services from one service to another, so you can simply select copy service from 1 to 2 or 3. So basically most of the information will be copied to the service, so you don't have to configure multiple times all the information. Once you configure your services, you can simply minimize. Now we can look at the EtherSAM configuration parameters. In this page, it allows you to configure your dual test set if you're using a remote unit to connect and run a head-to-head dual test set test. You can enable the dual test set and you can discover the remote unit. You can click on scan, or you can assign a specific ID in order to scan it. In this case, we already have a unit scan. Once you discover the remote unit, either you can loop it up, which will be set to as a smart loopback, or you can connect to it, which is going to be a dual test case. If you click on connect, you should see that it's connecting to the remote dual test set EtherSAM unit available on the network. Once it's connected, you can simply click on close and it shows you that it's actually connected. And here you can enable some of the subtest parameters. You can enable the ramp test, the burst, service performance test, duration time. Under global, you can enable the option per direction configuration as well as pass or fail verdict. You can measure your latency measurement as a round trip. And the next tab, you can configure your ramp. You can add or delete a step, and you can also configure the step time. Under burst, you can enable the number of burst sequence, refill delay ratio, and burst frame ratio. Once it's all configured, you simply minimize the window. You click on start. The dual test functionality should start and automatically bring you to the summary page, and it shows you that what type of test is actually performing the service configuration test, and it shows you also the test is pass or fail automatically, and it gives you statistics on the services. As you can see here, it shows you frame loss, maximum jitter, latency, and your CIR rate. So the test will take, depending on how long it's been configured, it will run until the complete duration and give you the test result. You can look at the service configuration test. It shows you that the step of the ramp test from 50, 75 and to 90, and the service performance test, it shows you that more information, your SLA results from local to remote, remote to local for the service that you selected. And alarms and error also give you indication if there's any errors and alarm in the different layer at the Ethernet, IP, UDP, TCP, also on the interface. On the traffic page, it gives you more details, what type of traffic RX is receiving, what type of traffic that you're transmitting. A unicast, as you can see here, this amount of frame that transmit and receive, and it's also give you overall of the Ethernet bandwidth utilization and frame rate per second as well. The logger give you more information when the test is started, when the service test configuration test started, and the service performance test started, and give you the details in the event, the time and details. Once the test is completed, it will stop by itself and will ask you to generate the report. If you want to generate the report, simply click on yes. fill the proper information, the job information, the job ID, the report headlines, and other parameters that you need to fill out. And you can select the report format, whether it's PDF or HTML. Then you can save the report, and you should generate the report and display the report right after generation, so you can view the test result. Once again, thank you for joining us, and for the full version of our Be an Expert training, please contact us at techtraining@expo.com.